Black CEO kicked out of her own restaurant, then one calm sentence changed everything. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. Get out now! The shout hit the air like glass shattering. Every sound in the restaurant stopped. Even the hum of the air conditioner seemed to vanish. A silver fork clinked, a napkin drifted to the white marble floor. At the center of it all stood Chloe Johnson, calm and unmoved, wearing a plain navy polo and pressed khaki slacks clothes, too simple for a place wrapped in crystal and glass. Across from her, Richard Cole, the floor manager, leaned forward, face flushed, veins sharp against his neck. "This dining area is for paying guests," he barked, pointing toward the exit. "Staff take breaks in the back." Chloe didn't move. The silence that followed wasn't quiet, it was charged, heavy like static before a storm. 3 tables away, a blonde woman whispered. "She's really arguing with management." A man in a gray suit muttered, "Why risk your job over a seat?" But Chloe wasn't an employee. Not today. Today, she had walked into the Atelier downtown, her own restaurant, dressed like anyone else, testing what happened when power didn't announce itself. Richard slammed a palm on the table beside her. Crystal glasses trembled light, refracting into shards across the linen. "I set out." He barked again, as if noise could rewrite reality. Chloe turned her head slowly, eyes steady, no anger, just quiet precision. "You might want to check who I am first." A soft chuckle rippled from the bar. Someone muttered, "Oh, she's playing that card." Richard sneered. "Right. And I'm the mayor. Security." At the edge of the frame, a young waiter, Luis, froze, unsure. His eyes flicked between Chloe's composure and Richard's fury. Across the room, Maya, a server barely in her 20s, clutched her tray to her chest. "She's not staff," she whispered. Richard cut her off without looking. "Handle your tables, Maya." The air thickened heat, embarrassment, disbelief. Then Chloe spoke, voice low but slicing clean through the noise. "You're making a mistake that will cost more than your paycheck." It wasn't a threat. It was a warning wrapped in calm. And that calm hit harder than any shout. A man near the window raised his phone. The red record light blinked once, twice. This wasn't a private confrontation anymore. It had just become a scene. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to Chloe. She didn't flinch as Richard stepped closer. Every eye followed him, the shouting man in a tailored suit against the woman who refused to bend. He jabbed a finger toward her again, voice cracking with frustration. "You're done here." Chloe adjusted her sleeve, spine straight as marble. "We'll see who's done." The camera kept rolling. Outside, the city lights reflected on the restaurant's glass walls, calm, indifferent, unbothered. And somewhere far beyond that dining room, justice had already started dialing in. "Check her bag," Richard ordered. His voice cracked through the restaurant like a snapped wire. 2 servers hesitated, mid-step, caught between confusion and command. The low hum of conversation began to rise again, scattered and uneasy. A security guard, tall-built, wearing a black earpiece, moved toward Chloe. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." She didn't even blink. "I haven't broken a single rule," she said quietly. "But you're about to." The man paused, one hand hovering near her shoulder. Something in her tone, steady, absolute, made him hesitate. But Richard pushed forward, voice louder now, desperate for control. "She's trespassing. She's pretending to be a customer. Pretending." Chloe's eyebrow lifted slightly. "You really want to go with that word?" From across the room, Maya whispered to Luis, "He's going too far." Luis shook his head. "He's scared. He just doesn't know of who yet." At table 6, a man in a navy blazer whispered into his phone, "You're not going to believe this. The manager just yelled at some woman like she's a thief." His dinner companion glanced up. "She doesn't look like a thief. She looks like she owns the place." Chloe exhaled slowly. The stillness around her wasn't surrender, it was strategy. When she finally spoke, her voice dropped low enough for the nearest tables to catch every word. "You're building a reputation faster than you're serving food." Richard scoffed. Big words for someone about to be escorted out. He waved at the guard again. The guard took a single step, then stopped when Chloe's phone buzzed. She raised it to her ear. "Yes, Carla. Go ahead." Her tone flipped the room like a switch. Calm, professional, in command. A faint voice came through the speaker, clear enough for those nearby to hear Protocol 7 activated. Ownership verification live. Confirmed location, the atelier downtown. Every conversation died. Forks paused mid-air again. Richard blinked. What is that supposed to mean? Chloe looked at him. It means you just called security on your employer. The guard froze completely. Maya's hand went to her mouth. Luis whispered, "No way." Richard's laugh was brittle now. "You're bluffing." But his voice had lost its edge. The confidence in it sounded rehearsed fragile. Chloe set her phone down gently on the nearest table. "Keep listening," she said. "The truth has a way of finding its own volume." Behind her, the restaurant doors opened. Two regional supervisors wearing discreet badges stepped in, eyes locked on Richard. One of them spoke into a headset, confirming, "Miss Johnson is on site." And just like that, every sound in the dining room folded into silence again, the kind that only comes before a reckoning. The camera light blinked red once more, and somewhere online that blink became the start of 1,000,000 views. No one moved. The clatter of plates had stopped. Even the music's soft jazz from hidden speakers faded beneath the weight of disbelief. Chloe rose slowly from her chair. The movement alone changed the air. It wasn't defiance, it was inevitability. Richard took a step back, still trying to hold on to what was left of his power. "You think I'm afraid of some call center stunt?" he said, forcing a laugh that never reached his eyes. One of the supervisors spoke quietly into a mic. "Copy that," confirming Miss Johnson's identity. A second later, both their tablets pinged. A logo appeared, the Atelier Group. Under it, bold letters, "Owner Chloe Johnson." Maya gasped. Luis dropped the cloth he was holding. The guard straightened, lowering his arm. Chloe didn't gloat. She simply said, "Now you know who I am." The sound of that sentence was heavier than any scream. It didn't echo, it landed. Richard blinked, trying to piece his reality back together. "Wait, this is your restaurant," Chloe nodded once. "And you just humiliated your employer in front of her guests." The entire dining room seemed to breathe out at once. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Another voice said, "She warned him." Richard opened his mouth, searching for words that no longer existed. I didn't know." Chloe cut in, calm but surgical. "That's the problem. You never care to know. You just assume." The supervisors exchanged a glance. One spoke softly into his headset. "Begin termination protocol." Richard froze. "Wait, hold on. I made a mistake." Chloe turned to him fully, her tone flat, resolute. "No, you made a statement. And the world heard it." A notification pinged on her phone. Carla's voice came through, regional HR confirmed. "His credentials have been deactivated." Richard's ID badge blinked red. The color drained from his face as the doors at the back clicked, his access revoked in real time. Gasps. Silence. And then a single, slow clap from the far corner. The man in the navy blazer who'd been whispering earlier stood and said, "That's what accountability looks like." Chloe didn't turn toward him. Her eyes stayed on Richard. "I didn't come here to humiliate anyone," she said. "I came to see who still believed people like me don't belong in the places we built." Maya's eyes welled up. Luis whispered, "She's everything they said she was." And in that moment, the room shifted. Shame turned into awe. Richard stumbled backward, whispering, "I didn't mean." Chloe interrupted one last time. "Intent doesn't erase impact." Outside, the city lights flickered against the glass. Inside, justice had already been served. Not loud, not violent, just absolute. The phones kept recording, and the world kept watching. The room was silent again, but this time it wasn't fear that filled it, it was consequence. Phones were still raised, glasses half full. No one dared speak first. Richard stood stiff, his breath shallow. His badge still flashed red, a tiny pulse of failure against his chest. "Miss Johnson, please," he started, voice cracking. "It was a misunderstanding. You have to believe me." Chloe took a slow step forward, her heels barely making a sound against the marble. The light from the chandeliers caught the gold trim of her watch, the only detail that now hinted at who she really was. "A misunderstanding," she repeated softly. "That word has protected people like you for far too long." She gestured toward Maya and Luis. "But tonight someone spoke up. They remembered decency when you forgot yours." Maya swallowed hard. I just told the truth." Chloe nodded. "Exactly. That's how change begins, not with noise, but with truth." Carla's voice came faint through the phone, still resting on the table. Legal team confirmed termination. "Do you want me to proceed with the statement, ma'am?" Chloe didn't look away from Richard. "Send it." Outside, across social media, a company memo went live. Effective immediately, the Atelier Group enforces a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory behavior across all locations. Within seconds, the notification began pinging on employees' phones across the country. Back in the dining room, Richard whispered, "You're destroying my career." Chloe's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I'm ending a pattern. You just happened to be the last one who thought power came with cruelty." The cameras caught everything, her stillness, his unraveling. At the far table, the man in the navy blazer raised his glass slightly. "To the calm ones," he said under his breath. Others followed, murmuring agreement. The sound was small but steady respect, replacing tension. Chloe turned toward the crowd now, her eyes sweeping the faces that had watched her humiliation minutes ago. "You all saw what happened here," she said quietly. "Don't let it fade when the clip ends." She walked toward the exit, the same door Richard had pointed her to earlier. The symbolism was impossible to miss. At the threshold, she paused, looked back once, and said the line that froze the internet. "You screamed, 'Get out!' But people like me built the doors you're standing behind." Then she stepped through the automatic glass, parting soundlessly, as if even the building itself understood who truly belonged. The camera panned toward Richard one last time, shoulders slumped, badge, dark silence absolute. Somewhere far above the city, a phone notification lit up, "The Atelier story 1M views in 15 minutes. Justice didn't need applause. It already had proof. By the time Chloe reached the street, night had deepened. The city buzzed with the kind of noise that makes silence louder. A light drizzle blurred the reflections of the Atelier's golden logo on the wet pavement. She paused under the awning, slipped her phone from her pocket, and watched the screen light up. Hundreds of messages, mentions. Mentions turned to headlines. Headlines turned to change. A notification blinked, number the Atelier moment, 1.4 million views. She didn't smile. She simply exhaled, slow and deliberate. Inside the restaurant, lights dimmed for closing. Through the glass, she could still see Maya and Luis clearing the last table, whispering to each other, both still shaken but lighter somehow, as if truth had finally taken a seat at the table. A soft voice came through her AirPods, Carla, ever efficient, ever calm. "Press is calling for comment." "How would you like me to respond?" Chloe watched a cab glide past its headlights, cutting across the puddles. "Tell them there's no comment," she said. The story already spoke. Carla hesitated. Understood. Chloe's gaze lifted to the restaurant's tall windows, the same ones she'd been nearly thrown out of hours ago. Her reflection looked back, poised, composed, unshaken. "Funny," she murmured to herself. "They built this place to impress people like me. But they forgot people like me built it." The drizzle turned to rain, soft and persistent. Passers-by recognized her now. One woman slowed, phone in hand. "Are you the lady from the restaurant?" she asked, half awed. Chloe gave a faint nod. The woman's eyes softened. "You didn't even raise your voice." Chloe's reply was almost a whisper. "You don't need to shout when the truth stands tall enough." The woman smiled, mouthed, "Thank you," and walked on. Chloe stepped toward the curb, flagged a car, and as the door closed behind her, her reflection fractured in the glass. Not broken, just multiplied. From a distance, the restaurant glowed like an apology written in light. Her phone buzzed one last time. Carla's message appeared on screen, all regional managers briefed. Zero tolerance in effect. "Congratulations, ma'am." Chloe typed a single response. "It's not congratulations, Carla. It's correction." The car merged into traffic taillights, blurring red through the rain. And as the city faded behind her, the voiceover returned the same calm tone that began every story. She didn't film justice. She was the result of it. Fade to black. The next morning, the Atelier downtown didn't open to music. The usual scent of fresh espresso and vanilla candles was replaced by something quieter consequence. Reporters gathered outside the glass doors, microphones ready their reflections merging with the restaurant's name printed in gold. Inside, Maya stood behind the host stand, palms damp, trying to steady herself. She'd never seen so many cameras. Luis adjusted his tie and whispered, "You think she'll show?" Maya nodded. "She always does." At exactly 9:00 a.m., Chloe arrived, no entourage, no flash. Just a black coat and the same stillness that had undone a man the night before. She stepped through the doors she'd been told to leave, and the hush that followed was almost reverent. A journalist called out, "Miss Johnson, any comments about last night's incident?" Chloe paused, turned slightly toward the crowd. "There was no incident," she said. "There was a correction." The reporters exchanged glances, unsure whether to follow or record. She continued walking, calm, deliberate, to the very spot where Richard had stood yelling less than 24 hours ago. The marble gleamed as if the night had been scrubbed clean. Maya approached, voice trembling but proud. "Ma'am, the staff asked if they could start with a team meeting before lunch service." Chloe smiled faintly. "Good. Let's make sure everyone knows who we are and who we serve." Luis looked up from polishing a glass. "You really came back." Chloe met his eyes. "Of course. You don't abandon what's yours. You rebuild it." The door chimed again. A delivery man entered holding a large bouquet of white lilies with a small card attached. He read it aloud before setting it down. "To the woman who reminded us what leadership looks like, the Atelier Regional Team." Chloe's expression softened, but she said nothing. Words were too small for mornings like this. Across the street, a digital billboard flickered. It showed a still frame from the viral video, Richard mid-shout, Chloe standing firm. Beneath it, a single caption, "Calm has a name." Inside, the staff began to gather. Nervous smiles. Apologies whispered. Hope rebuilding itself in tiny gestures, a held door, a poured coffee, a shared breath. Chloe looked around the room, then spoke just loud enough for everyone to hear. "We can't erase last night, but we can decide what every night after looks like." Applause followed, not loud but real. The kind that comes from people who've just remembered what dignity feels like. Outside traffic rolled on, indifferent as ever. Inside, something had shifted, not policy, not press coverage, but culture. Chloe glanced once more at the doors, the same ones that had nearly closed on her. They stood open now, sunlight spilling through like a promise. "Let them come," she said quietly. "This time we'll greet them right." Fade to white. By noon, the video had a life of its own. Clips of Chloe's calm face looped across every screen on TikTok, Twitter, CNN, even a late-night host's monologue. She didn't raise her voice once, one anchor said. "That's what power looks like when it knows it's real." The clip was everywhere, Richard shouting, Chloe standing still, the restaurant frozen in disbelief. Someone slowed it down, added piano music. Another edited it with the caption, "Composure the ultimate clapback." Hashtags bloomed overnight. Number, the Atelier moment. Number, built by her. Number, calm has a name. At a cafe across town, two women scrolled through the video on their lunch break. "She handled him like a mirror," one said. "He looked in and saw everything wrong with himself." Her friend nodded. "You think she planned it?" "No," she said softly. "She just stopped pretending." In an office elevator, a young black intern watched the same clip on her phone. The woman beside her, middle-aged, white, polite, leaned over and murmured, "Good for her. About time." The intern smiled but didn't answer. She just whispered to herself, "That could have been me." Across the city newsrooms, debated policy, PR teams scrambled, and restaurant owners quietly reviewed their diversity training manuals. Every replay of Chloe's voice became a mirror someone had to face. At the Atelier headquarters, Carla stood by a window scrolling through comments. 52,000 mentions of your name in the last hour, she reported over the phone. Chloe's voice came back, measured as ever. "Names fade. Lessons don't." Carla hesitated. "Some people think it was staged." Chloe's chuckle was soft, almost kind. "If they need to call justice fiction to believe it, let them. We're still real." In another clip, Maya appeared briefly on a morning show, her voice trembling but proud. "She never yelled," Maya said. "She didn't have to. The room just knew." Luis, meanwhile, filmed a quiet thank you video in the empty restaurant to Miss Johnson for showing us what silence can do when it has weight. Within hours, the Atelier's reservations doubled. Some came to taste the food. Most came to see the legend. And yet Chloe stayed out of sight. No press conferences, no interviews. Just her signature on one short internal memo, "Power is not the opposite of grace. It's what happens when grace refuses to move." The memo leaked. Within a day, it became a quote, then a t-shirt, then a movement. Somewhere online, a comment summed it all up. She didn't cancel anyone. She corrected the room. And just like that, the world understood the calmest person in the room had changed it. The boardroom of the Atelier group was nothing like the restaurant. No marble floors, no music, no audience, just the quiet hum of ambition. A long table stretched toward a skyline of glass and morning light. Chloe sat at its head. 10 directors lined each side their faces, a mix of admiration, concern, and calculation. The viral clip played silently on the monitor behind her, looping her own composure, reminding them all what had happened. A senior board member cleared his throat. Miss Johnson, the footage, while powerful, has divided the public. Some say you embarrassed the brand. Chloe didn't look away from the window. Then they don't understand what our brand was built on. Another director leaned forward, fingers laced. We just want to be sure this doesn't spiral into controversy. Investors. She cut him off gently. Investors can count profits. I count principles. The room stilled. Someone took a quiet breath. She tapped her tablet, and the screen behind her changed to 3 words in white text. The Atelier Standard. Chloe stood voice steady. Starting today, every location, every partner, every employee will be trained under this code. Not for compliance, for conscience. She walked slowly past the line of executives, her heels clicking in rhythm with her words. Respect is not an add-on to service. It is the service. A young woman near the end of the table, one of the newest members, whispered, "People will follow this." Chloe smiled faintly. They won't have a choice. Dignity isn't negotiable. Carla entered quietly, handing her a folder. Draft policy ready for your signature. Chloe scanned it once, then signed with a stroke of gold ink. A headline was already being prepared by PR. The Atelier Group launches national initiative on workplace equality. But Chloe wasn't thinking about headlines. Her gaze had drifted back to the window, to the city she'd built piece by piece, to the people who'd once doubted her right to walk through her own doors. We don't rebuild reputation, she said softly. We redefine it. One of the older men nodded almost reverently. You've turned a scandal into a standard. Chloe turned off the screen, ending the loop of her viral video. No, she corrected gently. I turned a moment of weakness into a rule of strength. The boardroom fell into thoughtful silence. Even the hum of the city outside seemed to slow, as if listening. Then quietly, she added the line that would appear in every business magazine the next morning. The Atelier Standard isn't about image. It's about integrity, seen or unseen. She set the pen down, the sound small but final. Outside, the skyline reflected in the glass looked sharper, cleaner, like a city reintroduced to its own reflection. Fade out. It didn't take weeks. It took hours. By dawn the next day, the Atelier Standard had crossed oceans. In London, a hospitality CEO reposted the memo with the caption, "Leadership doesn't shout. It instructs by example." In Johannesburg, a young restaurant manager printed Chloe's quote and taped it to her office wall. In Seoul, a university ethics class played the viral video as a case study on dignity in business. And in New York, a 12-year-old girl watched it on her tablet, eyes wide. "Mom," she said, "she looks like me." Social media turned Chloe into something more than a headline. She became shorthand for restraint that rewrote the rules. She didn't react. She responded. She didn't fight back. She stood forward. Those phrases became mantras, stitched into motivational clips and commencement speeches. At a women's business summit, a moderator asked a panel of CEOs, who here adopted the Atelier Standard half. The hands in the room went up. Cameras flashed. Someone whispered history just adjusted its posture. But Chloe stayed quiet through it all. No interviews, no personal appearances, only results. She preferred silence to spectacle. When a journalist asked Carla, "Why doesn't Miss Johnson want to speak publicly?" Carla smiled. Because she already did. The world just hasn't stopped repeating her sentence. Meanwhile, in the Atelier's flagship restaurant, a new sign appeared near the entrance, "Dignity first, every table, every time." Guests began taking photos with it, sharing the message more than the meals. One night, a staff meeting in Miami ended with a line supervisor saying, "Remember the video." She didn't yell, she didn't curse, she corrected the air around her. The room nodded. A ripple of quiet agreement passed through them like current. Back in Chloe's office, she scrolled through an inbox filled with messages from strangers, letters from students, small business owners, even security guards. One read simply, "Because of you, I stayed calm today." And they finally listened. She leaned back, eyes closed for a moment, letting the weight of that line settle. It wasn't fame, it was reflection. Carla knocked gently. "The UN called. They want to feature you in their Leaders for Equality forum next month." Chloe smiled faintly, gaze drifting to the framed photo on her desk, the first restaurant she ever opened, built from the money she once saved after being denied service years ago. "Tell them I'll come," she said softly, "but only if they understand this isn't about applause. It's about alignment." Outside, the city lights blinked in rhythm with the screens replaying her story across continents. What began as humiliation had become harmony, the quiet power of one voice, teaching the world how to listen. Fade to gold. The chamber of the United Nations shimmered in glass and light. Flags framed the stage like witnesses to history. Hundreds of delegates filled the seats, presidents, executives, students, skeptics, cameras poised waiting for spectacle. Chloe Johnson stepped to the podium in a charcoal suit, simple, tailored, precise. No jewelry, no flash, just presence. The murmurs faded until even the translators paused. She looked over the room, faces from every continent, eyes waiting to see how a viral video could end up here. Then she began, voice low and clear. When I walked into my own restaurant and was told to get out the world, watched a few minutes of injustice. But for some of us, it wasn't minutes. It was a lifetime. No one moved. The line hung in the air like a truth long overdue. What happened wasn't unique. What changed was that it was seen. And visibility, she said. Scanning the hall is the first step to accountability. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. She placed both hands on the podium, not as a gesture of control, but of grounding. I didn't fire a man to make a point. I enforced a principle. Because power without respect, she paused, letting silence shape the next word, is noise. Pens stopped moving. Heads lifted. The sentence hit like a verdict. We live in a time where volume masquerades as truth, where shouting seems stronger than listening. But dignity, she said, her tone deepening, doesn't need to raise its voice. It just needs to be consistent. On the large screen behind her, a single image appeared, the atelier sign gleaming above open doors. Below it, dignity first. I am not here to ask for sympathy. I am here to remind you that leadership isn't measured by who speaks the loudest, but by who stays calm when silence demands courage. The hall stood still. Even the camera operators forgot to move. Then slowly, one delegate rose to his feet. Another followed. Then a wave, quiet, deliberate, not a roar but a rising. A standing ovation built not from excitement but from respect. Chloe stepped back from the podium, nodded once, and whispered into the mic. Thank you for listening not to me but to what silence can sound like. As she left the stage, the giant UN emblem glowed above her like a seal of balance restored. Reporters rushed forward, but she didn't stop. She had said everything she needed to and nothing more. Outside, the air of New York was sharp and bright. The city hummed like applause she didn't require. Carla caught up, handing her a single white envelope. From Geneva, she said, they want to adopt the atelier standard for international training. Chloe smiled, tucking it into her coat. Good, she said. Let's make respect global. And with that, she walked into the crowd, not above it, but among it, proof that true leadership doesn't echo. It endures. Fade to white. Long before the cameras, before the boardrooms, before the marble and glass, there was a diner on the south side of Charlotte. Chloe was 16. The air smelled like grease and rain. Her Sunday dress was pressed and perfect, her mother's pride ironed into every seam. She had a $5 bill in her hand and the simple hope of sitting at a booth to celebrate her report card. But the moment she walked in, the chatter stopped. The waitress behind the counter, older, pale, tired, looked up and frowned. Sweetheart, this section's for guests. The takeout counter's back there. Chloe smiled, unsure. I just wanted to sit for a bit. The woman's eyes flicked toward the window where two white families were eating. Not today, honey. You can wait outside. Chloe hesitated. But I already paid. The woman sighed. I don't make the rules. I just keep them. The words burned without fire. She turned, walked out under the buzzing neon sign that said, Home Cookin'. The rain had started again, soft and apologetic. She stood under it, clutching her receipt proof that she'd been there and that she hadn't been allowed to belong. Her mother pulled up minutes later, worried. What happened? Chloe forced a smile. They said I had to wait. Her mother saw the truth in her eyes and pulled her close. Then don't wait forever, baby. Build a place they can't close you out of. That night, Chloe opened her worn notebook and wrote the words that would one day hang above every atelier doorway. Respect is not granted. It's designed. Years later, those same words would become her mission statement, her architecture, her quiet rebellion turned policy. Every time she opened a new location, she remembered that diner, the squeak of the stool, the smell of burnt coffee, the sting of being invisible. She turned that memory into marble, into gold, lettering into an empire that began with exclusion and ended with invitation. And sometimes, when the noise of her success grew too loud, she still went back to that corner of Charlotte, the diner, long closed windows, dusty sign, rusted. She'd park outside, roll the window down, and whisper to her younger self, You did it. You built the room. Then she'd smile, not proud, just certain, and drive away. Because every empire begins with a door someone tried to shut. And hers began with the sound of one closing behind her. Fade to quiet rain. Years later, the Atelier Foundation stood where the old diner once had been, a glass building wrapped in sunlight, its walls etched with the words, Dignity First. Children from nearby schools visited on weekends to learn about leadership, respect, and design. Chloe didn't run the place anymore. She guided it quietly from the background. That morning, she walked through the lobby surrounded by displays of photos and blueprints. One picture stopped her, a still frame from the viral Knight Richards hand mid-air. Her gaze calmed the room, frozen in the moment before Justice turned. A caption underneath read, "The calm that changed everything." A young intern approached, barely 20, wide-eyed, nervous. "Miss Johnson," she said softly, "I watched that video when I was in high school. It's why I applied here." Chloe smiled, gentle and genuine. "Then you already understand the first rule." The girl blinked. "What's that?" "Never mistake silence for weakness. It's where real change starts." They walked together down a hallway lined with plaques, each one engraved with a city where the Atelier standard had taken root. Paris, Accra, Dubai, Sydney. Names that once seemed distant, now connected by principle. Carla's voice came from behind, warm, with years of familiarity. "Press wants to know if you'll attend the Global Ethics Forum next month." Chloe shook her head. "Let the next one speak. They've earned the microphone." Carla smiled. "You really think they're ready?" Chloe looked around at interns, laughing softly over coffee, at designers sketching without fear, at a janitor being greeted by name. "They already are," she said. She paused at the entrance sunlight spilling across the floor and ran a hand over the engraved motto by the door, the same one her 16-year-old self had once written in a notebook. Outside, a small crowd had gathered, students, journalists, tourists. One of them called out, "Miss Johnson, can we film you for the Foundation's page?" She turned, eyes kind but firm. "You don't need to." The crowd hushed as she stepped into the light. "I don't need to film Justice," she said, voice low but carrying. "I am its result." Flashbulbs clicked once, twice, then stopped, because somehow everyone knew the moment was too sacred for noise. The camera panned up sunlight, catching the building's glass, reflecting a skyline reborn in its own image. Her silhouette moved forward, small but certain, dissolving into brightness. Fade to white. Then one line appears across the screen. Justice doesn't shout. It stands.